I want to tell you the story of how I joined Riot Games, because I think there's an important gem there. So before Riot Games, I used to be a consultant. I had my own consulting company. I used to help large organizations become agile. So that was my job. And one day I was doing a training, and someone from Riot Games was attending. I'm like, I don't even know who Riot Games is. So we talked more, and I went and visited their campus, and I met the two founders, the co-CEOs at that point. And they said, let's do an engagement together. It was a 3-month engagement. And the idea was they were growing very fast, and they wanted help to align leadership. So leadership, as you grow very fast, leadership was, acting in different ways, so they wanted to align the leadership. So I came up with this idea after interviewing a lot of people, and the idea was to bring 200 of Riot leaders together and do a 2-day offsite with them to debate and align on the values and principles of how we work as an organization. So we did a lot of planning for that, and today's the day. We're doing it, and by lunch of day one, everything that could go wrong went wrong. It was a disaster. People were standing up, shouting, leaving, saying this is a waste of my time. The CEO was coming to me. He's like, "What's happening?" I'm like, "I don't know." It was a disaster. The people on my team, by the end of that day, were crying, and I just wanted to vanish. Anyway, day two that was just day one. Day two was a little bit better, and this was a Thursday, Friday. Monday morning, I get an email from the CEO, let's have lunch. What does that mean to any one of you? What do you think is going to happen? I'm going to get fired, right? It's obvious. So I go, oh, we're good, we're back? Okay. So I go, we're having lunch, and he's doing all the pleasantries, and I'm like, you know what? Just go for it. What's on your mind? And he's like, we want to hire you. I'm like, why do you want to hire me? That doesn't make any sense. The past 2 days were a disaster. And he's like, yes, but we want to hire people that are willing to take risk. We want to hire people that are not afraid to do something crazy like this. And he's like, I didn't think it was going to work. I'm like, really? You should have told me. And he's like, no, but it could have worked. What if it did work? It would have been great. And it was interesting in this moment, as I was talking to him, it hit me like for the past 15 years, I was working with these large companies trying to create a culture of learning in that company. And it's very hard, right? Very hard. Large organizations always say we want to create a safe culture and a culture of innovation. But when people fail, that's what the focus is on. And we actually don't allow room for failing. And so I'm standing here and sitting in front of this person who's like, yes, we value this. And I am the proof, right, that they want to hire me after this. And so I sold my company. I moved my family. And I've been with Riot Games for 4 years now. But I wanted to start with a picture from day one of, this was before the disaster happened. But the culture of learning is really core, right, to an agile organization. An agile organization is simply an organization that is focused on learning. Learning about the customer, learning about how we work, learning about individuals. It's a learning organization. Right? And before I move forward, I want to at least you guys engage in a conversation because I won't understand most of what you say. But what promotes a culture of learning? What are you doing here at Samsung SDS to promote a culture of learning? And feel free to talk English, Korean, whatever, but I really want you as a group to engage in a conversation. Because, again, this culture of learning doesn't just come out of the blue. It's people like you, leaders, that either create a culture of learning or sort of hinder a culture of learning. So what are we doing here to create a culture of learning? And I'm sure we're doing stuff, so I'm curious, what are we doing? So what are we doing to create a culture of learning here?
One guy said about the software algorithm test.
Uh-huh. What else? Oh, come on. Seriously? That's it? What are we doing to hinder a culture of learning? To not promote a culture of learning? What are practices? It's okay. It's okay. It's after lunch. I get it. So pick 3 people around you and have a conversation, right? And give me at the end one thing that you're doing to really promote a culture of learning, and one thing that is actually in our culture here that prevents a culture of learning. Okay? I'll give you 3 minutes. Go. Talk. You ready? Okay. What's one thing that you believe we're doing to promote a culture of learning?
We are saying, okay, we have seminar once a week.
So technical seminars once a week. Excellent. And what are we doing to prevent or hinder a culture of learning? You guys didn't get there? What are negative things we're doing to Many wrong things? Or Okay, so I'll come back. All right. What about you guys? What did you guys say?
We have discussed we need to start training. Somebody has to keep some training.
Go learn? Yeah. Okay. And what are we doing to hinder or prevent a culture of learning?
Same thing.
We're not giving it?
Lot of work.
A lot of work. Okay. Interesting. I'll come back to that. What about you guys? Too much work? Okay. So the rest of you cannot say too much work as well. Okay. We'll there. All right. What about over here? What did you guys come up with?
I think it's basically a different the labor, the culture of labor market here, because we are not firing people. Once we get hired, we almost not fire any people. Because of that, most of the employees that fully engaged, they keep learning for something for just maintaining their level of
Competency.
Yes.
Yes.
But we provide a lot of different, like what they said, we provide a lot of different, the opportunities for learning.
Yep.
But vice versa, we actually want to evaluate how much we learn over time. I think that the kind of, pros and cons for providing opportunity of learning, but anytime that we want to know how much we learn from the opportunities, and then we need to actually provide and improve how much we learn from that. Yeah. So.
All right. What about over here? What did you guys come up with? Okay. So getting rid of hierarchy. Okay. That promotes. Why does that promote a culture of learning? I want to introduce this idea of mindset, because I believe that there's so much we're doing, whether consciously or not, because it is very intentional. That is an example of a culture of learning, right? Where learning is valued. And I'm not talking about training and education. I'm talking the fact that I can fail and learn and try again, that is valued and that is promoted. The mere fact, and I want you to think about this, that they hired me when I had failed in front of 200 leaders, right? That shows, that is a clear message to the company, right? That we will dignify people that will try big risks, right? Because again, they didn't have to offer me a job. Right? I'm a consultant. It's easy to fire me. It's easier to fire me than to bring me in, all right? But this mindset is one of the most important aspects of building a culture of learning. And I'll start with explaining what these two mindsets is. So this is from the work of Carol Dweck. She's a professor at Stanford University. And the idea here is that people have one of two mindsets, fixed mindset or growth mindset. All right? A fixed mindset is when people believe that what they have is what they have and it cannot grow or change. So if I believe that I have a beautiful voice, but that's it. I can't grow it, I can't change it. Or if I believe I have a horrible voice, that's still fixed mindset. Because at that point, I believe that and then between brackets here, anything, but I believe that my ability to sing is static. It's locked down or fixed. It cannot change, right? It happened to be very good because I'm just great at singing, right? And that leads to a set of behaviors. These behaviors are actually what kills a culture of learning in an organization. And those behaviors are the desire to always look good. So I don't show failure. I don't show vulnerability. I stick to what I know. I avoid any kind of challenges that may make me look bad. Why? Because remember, I believe I cannot change what I have. Right? And so feedback is not welcomed with people with a fixed mindset. Okay? And they don't change or improve over time because they don't challenge themselves, they don't try new things, they don't accept feedback, etc., etc. Growth mindset, on the other hand. This is the belief that what I have, my ability to sing, for example, can be developed. I can change it. If I put more effort, I can actually change it and get better at it. And so this leads to a desire to learn continuously, to confront uncertainties, embrace challenges, not be afraid, right? And to actually seek feedback because I want to learn. People are not born with one of these or the other. It's all about how we raise children, actually, right? So if I raise kids and tell them, you're so smart, you're so beautiful, etc., I am actually building a fixed mindset for the kid. But if I praise the effort, say, you've put a lot of effort, etc., like that, so I praise the effort, then I'm building a growth mindset. I remember when I first read this book, I went to my wife, and I said, first of all, the book says, like, don't do this, and I'm like, I'm doing everything the book says don't do. I went to my kid, to my wife, and I said, I think we screwed up kid number 1. Let's focus on number 2, because number 1 now has a fixed mindset. And that's me being fixed about my mindset. But the point is, we've actually changed how we talk to our kids to actually develop more of a growth mindset. And this is, the same thing happens within organizations as well. We could be hiring people with a growth mindset, but the words we use and the systems we have as leaders and managers could be actually pushing them back into a fixed mindset. Now, the danger here is it doesn't matter the processes we put. Whether we do iterations, Scrum, DevOps, all of these things don't matter if we have people with a fixed mindset. Why? Because all they want at that point is to look good. That fear of failure. And by the way, in companies, this is actually very critical because we hire people because they're good at things. So if they don't know, it's very hard for people to say, I don't know. We teach this, by the way, this stuff we teach at Riot Games, in day one, in orientation, we teach people about fixed mindset and growth mindset. And the reason we teach them is you were just hired because you're good at something. So you want to go in and you want to prove yourself. But part of that means that you may actually not be learning. You're taking your old experiences and trying to force them in this new environment. Have you ever met anyone who has succeeded in one part of the organization or one role, moves to another role or another part of the organization, and is trying to do the exact same thing here, even though the context is different, right? And they're trying to do it and they're failing, but people are afraid to give them feedback, or when they give them feedback, they're not listening. That's a very fixed mindset. Okay? Is this making sense? Yes? Hello? Yeah? Okay. Now, I want to talk about one level deeper, not singing and dancing, but work. Right? So, when faced with uncertainty, when faced with a new challenge, the fixed mindset has a very particular way of managing it. How? They force things to a known state. So, when you challenge me with uncertainty and unknown, my reaction is, wait a minute, I don't want to fail, I don't want to look bad, so let's fix things. Fix meaning static, make them static, they don't change, right? Let's sign off on these requirements, let's do this, let's do that. Why? Because whenever you change your mind, I'm at risk of failure, right? And so when faced with uncertainty and ambiguity, we have a natural desire to reduce the risk of failure, but how? Not by learning, by fixing, by forcing things to a known state or freezing them. On the other hand, when faced with uncertainty, this agile mindset, right? When faced with uncertainty and ambiguity, they have a desire to reduce the risk of failure also, because we're human, right? But through learning. And so the vulnerability of saying, I don't know, tell me, teach me, let me try something out, let me fail quickly, let me challenge this or change that, that becomes the behavior here. Does that make sense? So, because this is about learning, right, I personally have found it very, very challenging to have an agile organization, right, without really focusing on the fundamental aspect of changing people's mindset. Now, how do you change people's mindset? Number one is understanding that there are two mindsets. So simply the awareness that there is a fixed mindset and a growth or agile mindset is the first step. Why? Because now we have language to use. When I see a certain behavior, I can say, hey, I think you are behaving from a fixed mindset perspective. And we understand what that means. Now, this is not for us to become the police of mindset. Go around like, fixed mindset. Right? That's not the goal. The goal is to understand ourselves. So I'll tell you a very, don't laugh, but this is actually something I believed. So before I read this book and got into this space, I actually believed that some people were good at drawing and other people were not. I had a very fixed mindset about my ability to draw. All right? And I told myself, like in my head, I can't draw. Now, after I read this book, no, I do believe I can draw if I wanted to. Now, I've never invested time or effort in learning how to draw. Still, till today. Why? Because my job doesn't need it. But here's the difference. If suddenly my job needs it, I am not trying to find a way around it because I don't believe I can do it. I actually now know I need to learn as fast as I can. Mindset doesn't mean let me go learn everything. That's ridiculous, right? But what it means is I have a goal to provide value to my customer. Whatever impediments I have along the way, no problem. I will learn, I will experiment, I will discover, I will confront uncertainties, I will embrace challenges, I will learn from others so that I can actually get to the goal. But the other mindset is, I want to provide value. Oh, I have a roadblock. I don't know how to do it. Let me find a way around it, right? And we find these corporate shortcuts and people creating systems to match who they are and how they work versus actually trying to grow, because that growth means that sometimes they will fail. And that image of, especially leaders, failing is very, very challenging. But that's at the heart of changing the mindset. So I believe the first people that need to demonstrate this growth mindset are leaders. Right? And this is at the heart of changing the behavior and the culture of an organization to being a learning culture. Let me pause here. Questions, thoughts, concerns. Does this make sense at least? Yes, no? Thoughts, challenges, yeah. Yeah, please. First of all, thank you for acknowledging that. Yeah.
Leaders really want to reach their product and to shape the objective of the project. So they have to find every kind of ways to solve the problem. So someone cannot develop in C# first, the kind of language. But it's better to hire someone who can do that. Because someone who cannot do that.
I think I understand the question. So it's about investing in learning versus hiring someone who already knows. Is that correct? Okay. So the fact that someone can learn. Yeah, please.
Is that also
So by the way, I actually think you're thinking about it in the right way. Let me explain. The fact that we can learn does not mean that I will always invest in learning. It's a return on investment discussion. So let's say I need certain caliber here, right? I need someone who can program or test or whatever at this level, okay? So I can go hire someone at this level, or I can invest in someone here to grow. For me, it makes no sense to invest in someone here to grow. I'll go hire that person. But here's the trick. When you hire, are you looking at the mindset or not? Because someone may be here and still have a fixed mindset. They're here, but they don't believe they can grow any further. Your needs will always be changing. So what happens over time, if I hire people with a fixed mindset, yes, today they satisfy my need. But as my need changes because of uncertainty and complexity and so forth, guess what? They're not changing. They're actually resisting. They become problem people in my organization because they try to bring things back to the way they were versus embracing the change and actually growing. Why? Because you hired me as an excellent programmer with stars and badges and blah, 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 right? So now, if this starts to move, what happens to me? I look bad, right? So if I'm a senior person, I actually change the environment to make sure that this stays here. That's the danger. So, but that doesn't mean that I keep hiring people because I believe this is learning school. This is at the end. But here's the thing. Here's where investment happens. When this moves, if this person has a growth mindset, yes, this person is good and they can grow, I will invest in them to keep going. All right? Does that make sense?
I fully agree with you about it is very important to grow the agile or growing mindset, but I think it's very difficult to change one's people's mind from fixed to agile. Do you have any magic?
Yeah. Yeah, I have one pill you take 2 times a day and you're agile. No. So I think it's easier than you think. I really do, from my experience, right? People want, especially, so think about this. We are knowledge workers. We're not factory workers, right? So by nature, we have a desire, right? The problem is the systems around us force us to become almost task workers. Tell me what I need to do. Give me the task. Give me the Jira ticket, whatever it is, right? Give me the thing, let me do it, and I'm done. Versus engaging in intellectual thought. I actually believe, from experience, that when you educate people on the Agile mindset, and when leaders demonstrate it, people will change faster than you think. Actually, the challenge is people will change faster than you think, and now the leaders will have to build the systems to accommodate this new way of working. Because once you have an Agile mindset, the way we work changes. Right? It doesn't stay the same way. Because now we have different challenges. For example, if you're going to have a culture of learning, you have to have a strong trust for your employees. I've been with many other companies where the systems are designed because there is no trust. Right? The systems are designed to catch these things. So I actually think you can change, and education becomes a critical component in changing. Right? Knowing that there's multiple mindsets, demonstrated. When leaders become vulnerable and show their failures and show how they're learning and show that they're embracing changes, yes, then people are like, okay, it's safe to try this. All right, so really, Agile, this whole thing about Agile, it's a way of working. It's simply how we work if we have a culture of learning. Because if I'm out there learning all the time, and I'm not talking about, learning C# or learning, no. I'm talking about learning what the customer wants, learning dynamics, learning in general, right? If I'm learning, then what I learn, I need to change. Right? So you learn today that, you know what, if we do this thing, the customer actually, it won't satisfy the customer needs, even though it's written in the requirements, but it's not going to work. Okay? You learn something new. Now, how do you change that? Oh my God. 10 change requests, 5 forms, we need 2 meetings, right? The process is very heavy to change. So that's not Agile, right? Agile is a way of working where the learning is welcomed and incorporated into how we work. Because if you do that, then I invite more learning to happen. If the cost of change is higher, right, people will stop learning. And the behavior will be, just tell me what I need to do and I'll go do it. Right? There's no, why should I learn? Why should I put any effort? Does that make sense? And so, Agile, this whole thing about Agile, it's a mindset, right? It's not about process. It's a mindset described by values and defined by principles and then manifested through an unlimited number of practices. Daily stand-ups, sticky notes, iterations, that's all here, just practices. But the core is this mindset. And things that you hear like Scrum or extreme programming or any of these things, it's just a bunch of these things put together. That's all it is. Right? But the important thing is this. Being agile, not doing agile. It's actually very dangerous because if an organization already has a culture of tell me what to do, task taking, then even if someone on the top says, I want you all to become agile. Okay. Tell me what I need to do to be agile, right? So what's the answer is, tell me what I need to do to be agile. Okay, read this book, do this thing, do 2-week iterations, stand up, sit down, dance, I don't know what, right? So that becomes, it's the wrong mindset. The shift is, we need to be agile, okay? So we need to first understand the mindset, us, as leaders. We need to demonstrate this mindset. We need to promote the mindset. And with the mindset will come a shift in the practices that we do. Right? And again, this is not just a mindset. It's not let's hold hands and talk about how we learn. This is not Agile. It's still, there's a way of doing it. And this way of doing it goes through a journey. Right? So I'll give you an example here. So I don't know anything about Korea. If I land at the airport and I want to drive to my hotel, I'm going to get my GPS, put my hotel, and I'm going to follow instructions, right? If it's my first time here, I'm not going to say like, no, I think I have a better way. I don't know. I'm going to follow instructions precisely. Yes? Right? If you land in LA, where I live, and you're trying to get from your airport, from the airport to the hotel, you're not going to challenge the GPS, right? You're just going to listen to the directions. That's what we call shu. You're following the rule. Okay? Now, let's say I come to Korea more often. I start to understand, you know what, if I arrive at this time of the day, I should take this highway. If I arrive at this time, I should take this highway. Right? You guys get where I'm going with this? That's what we call ha. So you understand variations and when to shift between techniques. And then you have ri. Ri is mastery. When the GPS is off and you're just driving. You're driving from home to work, right? And if there's an accident, you go into this exit, you go through this neighborhood, you come out, and you've never tried that path before, but it just works. Why? Because you have such a mastery of it. Does that make sense? Shu ha ri. So this journey of agility, what you're going for is ri. Agility is ri. Right? Agility is whatever constraint you send my way, I can navigate around it. I learned that there's an accident, no problem, I'm going to take this exit. I learned there's another accident, no problem, I'll take this exit. Right? That's agility over here. But how do we get there? Can we start at ri? Can you land in LA and say, yeah, I think I know how to get to my hotel. I smell it. No. Right? You're going to follow instructions. So let's say, first day at work, you don't know how to get to the office here. You put your GPS on, you drive to work. If every day you're late, you will never get out of shu. Why? Because learning requires time. Because the moment you say, let me put my GPS off, right, and try a different route, there is a probability that it may not work. And if that probability, right, is a little high, but you always are busy, you're like, nope, safer, keep the GPS on. To move from shu to ha and from ha to ri, right, that is learning. Because at the end, I don't want people that follow GPSs and recipes. That's not Agile at all. Because guess what? The first constraint that comes their way, they stop. And they say, boss, how do I get around this? Do this. Okay. Then do this. Okay. Right? I'm following a recipe. But what you want is this. Agility. Whatever constraint comes my way, I can navigate it. But to do that, we have to allow room for learning. And here's the thing. People ask me this all the time. How do I do Agile with fixed budget, fixed time, fixed constraint, fix? My answer is the opposite. If nothing is fixed, you don't need Agile. Let me give you an example. Let's go back to driving. Let's say you live, I don't know where you live. Where do you live? Yeah, I can't even say that. Let's say he lives there, and to get from there to here, there's traffic. Okay? Is there traffic? Okay, there's always traffic. So there's traffic. Okay? Now, I'm at shu. He's at ri, right? He does this every day. If we leave on a Sunday morning at 6 a.m.? Is there any difference in performance between us? There's no traffic, empty road. We both get here. I have my GPS on. I get here. He gets here or not. No performance difference if there's no constraints. But if it's on a Monday morning, it's snowing, there's a couple of accidents, construction on the road, all these constraints, who would probably perform better? He should perform better. Why? Because he has mastery. He can take shortcuts I don't even know about. Does that make sense? So you have fixed budget, you have fixed constraints, you have regulations, you have this, you have that. Those are all constraints coming your way. The question is, are you agile enough to get around them? And that goes back to, are you building a culture of learning where, like, when you learn about the constraint, I can try things out to figure out how to navigate them. And it's a muscle that you build over time.
But that's the result, right? So how we can start from all these constraint situations and how we can get to the real state.
So we start with shu. You can't start at re. You have to start at shu. Right? We have to start by a recipe. Right? Maybe I didn't understand your question.
Yeah, so my question is, we start shu,
Mm-hmm.
but we always have a very, very, tight, limitations around us. Then we cannot even, start thinking about to, turn off the litigation, right? So how we can at least get to the hard stage.
Yep.
And then get to the real stage.
That goes back to the question I started with. What are you doing to create a culture of learning? Right? If it's simply putting people in training, that's not enough. Right? And that's why I say this culture of learning is what pushes people from here to here. Yes, you will always have constraints. That's the nature of the business. But it's the foresight to say, okay, I have one of two options, play short term or long term. Short term means I keep the GPS on and I'm always going to be running, right, to catch up. Long term says, I'm going to invest now, right? I'm going to slow down to speed up, right? I'm going to change scope. I'm going to challenge my boss. I'm going to do this and that so that I build a capability of agility so that on the long term, I can continue to win. Because here's the thing, it's only going to get worse. The rate of change and speed of change is only getting higher, not lower. With technology advancements, with the globalization, with all the uncertainty that's happening, it's not getting better. So it's right now a decision that we have to make as leaders. Short-term investment or long-term investment. Short-term investment says, I continue to do what I do and hope that it will get better. Right? Or, in reality, we just keep hiring people. Right? Assuming that the more work we have, we can actually go hire more people. And the moment you hire more people, the moment you introduce more complexity into your organization, you increase silos, you actually slow down. You slow the entire machine down. Right? Versus saying, okay, I'm going to invest very deliberately. Let's try this. Let's try that. Okay, we're going to fail once. We're going to talk to the customer. We're going to figure it out. We're going to educate the customer. We're going to do these things. Why? Because my goal is the competition will continue to get fiercer. The requirements will continue to get more volatile. And if I don't build a capability in the next 3 years, I can't continue. Right? It's sort of like when you climb Mount Everest. Right? There's milestones. There's camps. You have to get to camp 1 by a certain period of time, or else you can't continue the expedition. I believe if organizations don't build a capability of agility and change, I don't think they can continue the expedition the way they're doing it right now. They will have to change something fundamental in the organization, and the cost of that is much higher. That's my opinion based on my experience. So let me give you a practical thing to think about. And for this, I want to introduce some terms, right? And this is output and outcome, all right? Output are things that we produce. Things that we produce. So code, software, features, whatever it is, those are output. Outcome is the behavioral change. Why are we doing this? So I'm going to develop this feature, this. What is the behavioral change I want to see in the customer? Right? Are they supposed to enter data faster? Are they supposed to integrate between two systems easier? Data integrity goes up, whatever it is. What is the outcome? What is the behavioral change that needs to occur in a member or members of an audience? Now, I'll give you a very simple example here about the orientation. So if I start by thinking about output, so the output is a book. We're going to write a book on the Agile mindset. We just talked about it, right? So we're going to write a book. What's the outcome? What's the behavioral change that will happen? Who knows? Honestly, it's a guess. We hope people will buy the book. We hope leaders will change their behavior. We hope. Okay. Switch the equation. Start with the outcome and say, here's what I need to happen. The target audience are business leaders that are not yet bought into Agile. That's the audience. The behavioral change, number one, I want them to promote having an Agile mindset in their organizations. Number two, I want them to tell their recruiters to screen people for a growth mindset. We just talked about that. Number three, I want them to encourage more learning and risk-taking in their organizations. Those are three behavioral changes. Now the question becomes, what can I build to get there? What can I build to get there? And it's really back to these things, anchoring. When you fix a project, what is it fixed around? Output or outcome? Most projects are fixed around output, right? When you assess the success or failure of a project, is it when we ship things or when behavioral changes happen? But you'll tell me, but wait, we are a service provider. We build software. That's not our domain. I would challenge that and say, no, the success of your partner is your success as well. We're not just building software, we're building software for a purpose, right? And if they succeed, we succeed, right? And so here's an example. If you build things, even if in iterations, but they're focused on output. So I'm building a book. The logical first slice is chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3. Put the chapters together, you get a book. But here's the power. When you think about outcome, it's not about the output anymore. The outcome is, I want this important idea in this book for people to share it around. That's the behavior. I don't want to build a book. I could care less about the book. But I have this really cool idea and I wish everyone can share it. Okay, what's the smallest output that I can build to achieve the outcome? A blog post. Half a page blog post. Now I show you the blog post and you tell me, this is horrible. Because I'm working this way, I can actually incorporate the learning. So now when I write my next iteration, the short article, guess what I'm focused on? That last paragraph. That actually was valuable to the customer. And all through this, I am thinking about the outcome. What is the smallest amount of work that I can do to achieve the outcome? And so really the idea here is minimal output for maximum outcome. That's how we speed up. That's how we give room to breathe. By shifting what we focus on. The moment you focus on output, there's no room to breathe. Because it's all about, oh my God, this is the thing I need to build. All right, let's go build it. Right? And as you build, you discover more, the scope always increases, and it's just a constant race. But how do you actually create that room? Number one, you shift the conversation. Right? So this is how I do it, how I run teams. I have strategic initiatives that come from the top. Right? This is not a free-for-all, go build whatever you want. No, I need these outcomes to be achieved. Team, you figure out the output. Here's how I do it, very specifically. We have this outcome canvas we use. I want you to imagine, we don't talk about requirements anymore. We talk about outcomes. Here's the target audience. Here's the need, opportunity, pain of the target audience. I'm customer. I'm thinking. I'm having everyone think about the customer. Here's the behavioral change that we want to achieve. Here's how I'm going to measure that. Here's the impact that this should have for our customer. And then here, I leave this empty. And I give it to a team, and I say, you figure out what to build. The first time I ever did that, they were like, I don't know. I'm like, you have 6 months, $2 million, figure it out. So I give constraints, fixed budget, fixed timeline, but what's not fixed? And so we can engage with our customers in a different way. And by the way, at the end, they want outcomes, whether they know it or not. And sometimes they don't, and we need to educate them that what you're actually after is the outcome, not the output. I could care less if you want this system or that system. What is this system supposed to be doing? All right? And I have another idea for you. We can do it this way, that way, et cetera, et cetera. So here's the thing. When we talk about a culture change, we have to look at it holistically. Here's what I think culture is. Culture is leadership, their style, habits, values, strategy, how we set goals. Is it output-based or outcome-based? How we measure success. Is it when we achieve the output, or how do we give rewards? How are we structured? How do we delineate roles and responsibilities and org boxes and org design and all that kind of stuff? Our systems, our value chains, our policies, all of our processes and systems, and then people, their belief, their habits, all of that together is culture. All of that together is culture. Now, if you try to change one of these, right, doesn't work. Think of this like a rubber band. Imagine you're trying to change one piece of this only. What happens? This is what happens. Right? You force change right here. Actually, you create resistance. It's not change. You think it's change. It looks good. Right? But it's not. It's actually resistance. And the moment this sponsor removes their hand, what? The rubber band puts everything back. It's like, whoosh, done. What's coming next year? Right? And the easiest way we think about change, unfortunately, are these three elements: strategy, structure, and process. The non-human elements. It's easy to change those things. Easier, sorry. But going back to your question, to change the culture, we have to change all 5 elements together. Right? So if we simply look at the world this way, so let's say very simplistically here, I'm going to try to change from an old culture to a new culture. Okay? From an old industrial age mindset and culture to a new knowledge age mindset and culture. So how I've seen many organizations do it is they change process. And the hope is after they change process, other things will come along the journey and we'll get to the new culture. It does not work. It does not work. The resistance is too strong. I've seen this as well, where one team says, you know what? I'm going to become Agile. Screw everyone else. All right? I'm done with this. And then the hope is they attract other teams to do this. And then it's a mess. Everyone is doing something. They're calling themselves Agile, but no one knows what Agile is. I've seen this, where one part of the org says, I'm going to be Agile, not a team, a part of the org. Now, I haven't seen this succeed, but I have seen this succeed. When a fundamental part of one org that has a lot of influence changes, it can bring the rest along. But here's what I think should happen. And here's what I do with organizations. You need to move the entire triangle together. You need to pick a theme, an impact, an outcome, a behavior. And then you need to ask yourself, what needs to change for leadership to support that behavior? What needs to change in our strategies? And it's a holistic discussion. It's not development and talent is outside. No, we're talking about finance, talent, the whole organization, the entire culture. Leaders need to sit down and say, we're going to focus on this behavioral change. What needs to happen across all of these dimensions? And that's how you move the organization to a new culture step by step. And so what you're changing are leadership and organizational behavioral habits. That's what you're changing. And you can create a roadmap out of this. It looks something like this. Just to give you an example, right? So you pick a behavior, right? You spell it out. What does that look like? So it looks like this. So we need to change these behaviors. Senior leaders make only the most critical decisions. Decisions are pushed down into the org. Senior leaders empower and encourage decision-making, right, of others. Team members take initiative to do things outside of their defined role. I'm making this up, right? And then, as a transformation team, we look at this and say, leadership, what needs to change? And usually these two boxes, people and leadership, this is about transformational education. Education that changes the mental model. I used to think about the world this way, I think about it this way now, right? And so you start to build your roadmap. These are all the behavioral and impacts that we want to have. We want to behave as one team. We want the organization to be simple and not complex. And now, okay, what needs to change? Leadership, strategy, structure, process, and people. And in that discussion is talent, finance, everyone. And we need to even think about our customers. Because a lot of time we need to educate our customers so that actually we can work with them in a different manner. So, this is what I have, and I know we're out of time, but I hope this just gives you some food for thought. Leadership, what needs to change? And usually these two boxes, people and leadership, this is about transformational education. Education that changes the mental model. I used to think about the world this way, I think about it this way now, right? And so you start to build your roadmap. These are all the behavioral and impacts that we want to have. We want to behave as one team. We want the organization to be simple and not complex. And now, okay, what needs to change? Leadership, strategy, structure, process, and people. And in that discussion is talent, finance, everyone. And we need to even think about our customers. Because a lot of time we need to educate our customers so that actually we can work with them in a different manner. So, this is what I have, and I know we're out of time, but I hope this just gives you some food for thought.